Welcome to Washington in Focus. I'm Tim Klauser, the Center Square's Eastern Washington reporter, here with our Western Washington reporter, Spencer Pauly. Spencer, we're here to talk about one of your recent stories covering cuts to staffing at two King County Sheriff Office precincts. Now, tell me a little bit more about this and how they found themselves in this situation.
Well, I have to clarify, it's not cuts to staffing, but what they're doing is rearranging staffing of some of their precincts. So you're going to see minimal staffing levels at the north and southeast precincts within the King County Sheriff's Office. This means unincorporated parts of King County will see less policing in their areas. This includes Redmond Ridge, Fairwood, and Fall City. Some of the smaller towns in King County, but nonetheless, there's going to be minimal response times for priority one calls. And so this is going to be just the impacts of some of the budgeting issues that the sheriff's office and King County has faced in general within the past couple of years and in the future.
Yeah, so you said they're not cutting deputies, but they're moving staff around. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more? And I mean, you mentioned those areas. I know those are much smaller municipalities, but how close are they to, say, Seattle and other big metros in King County? And how might these shifts affect policing in those metros?
So I should just say the King County Sheriff's Office, no deputies are losing their jobs yet this year. This move is basically redeployment of resources. So what they have to do is King County Sheriff has to ensure that they are policing in their contracted cities. This includes Woodinville, Burien, SeaTac, Sammamish, other towns that are not quite big enough to have their own police department. So they rely on the King County Sheriff's Office to do the policing. And what that means is King County Sheriff has to, obligated by contract, has to have the minimal staffing levels there that are competent enough. This means that these smaller areas they're not close to Seattle, I should say. Like we're talking about Redmond Ridge. They might be close to Redmond, but they're not as well. But this means that they're going to see minimal policing levels there. But I have to say, this is something that has been warned about. Earlier this year, King County Sheriff Patty Cole Tyndall warned the King County Council that this is going to be even worse. Now, this move came sooner than expected for my end. When I previously reported on this, Patty Cole Tyndall said that King County Sheriff's Office faces a proposed $30.2 million cut to its general fund in the next biennium budget. This is because King County is facing a $150 million budget deficit. Now, that $30.2 million cut is the largest cut out of all King County departments. And what this can mean is you're going to see cuts to staffing levels. No more, these vacant positions are just going to be removed altogether. And there's going to be further reallocation, realignment of deputies from these unincorporated areas to the contracted cities. And so, these residents in unincorporated King County, they're going to have calls for priority one calls. These are emergency, life-threatening calls. It's going to be a delayed amount of time. But then some of your more minor calls, and I shouldn't say minor, but your thefts, your report of property damage, you might not get calls at all. They might not respond.
And just to clarify, you did say that they would be moving deputies from Fall City and those other locations to cover these unincorporated areas, correct?
Not to unincorporated areas, but to contracted cities, and including Sound Transit. Sound Transit, the region's transit network, is contracted with the King County Sheriff's Office to patrol those areas. And that's a need that is contracted. So you're going to see the realignment of these sheriff deputies in unincorporated parts of King County going to Sound Transit and to these to cities like Burien and Kenmore. But yeah, for Fall City and these other towns, you're going to see less deputies. And that's something that you're going to see more of perhaps next year if this $30.2 million cut goes into effect.
You mentioned a budget cut, budget crunch with King County and the Sheriff's Department. It reminds me of a situation that's going on over here in Spokane County. Spokane County is facing a $20 million budget deficit next year as well. Not quite as large as King County, but still considerable. And at the same time, the Sheriff's Department is trying to fill vacancies as it just renegotiated its collective bargaining agreements for its deputies' pay. So Spokane Valley, which is right next to the city of Spokane, it contracts with the Sheriff's Department Department, but it's expecting its contract to increase by $5 million almost over the next 3 years. So I'm
And
wondering
you're
with these
just
shifts
touching
in
on that right there, Tim. I was going to say this is not just a King County issue, but this is a statewide issue, maybe even further. We cover Washington, and we're seeing this, but this is constant. I feel like we're repeating over and over again that these budget deficits and these budget crunches, they are impacting policing at not just city levels, but at county levels. And that's something you and I both are very familiar with and are covering it. But yeah, King County, whether it's a $150 million budget deficit or $20 million deficit in Spokane, revenue is not coming in as fast as their expenditures are going out. And that's what's causing this issue. And you're just going to see a huge shift in policing because of this. And this is something that was kind of warned, I should say, in 2020 when the pandemic was occurring, and say, wow, this is going to affect, budgets in the future. And it's now 2025 and we're still seeing these issues and the ripple effect.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely worth mentioning that, Washington state ranks behind every other state, including the District of Columbia. So 51 other areas in terms of law enforcement officers per capita. We have the least amount. Now, what I'm wondering in regard to the shifts in policing is that, Spokane County, Spokane Valley, they pay the county a certain amount for a certain amount of officers every year, and they're wanting to hire more, which is going to raise that total even more. But with these shifts in King County, are these areas like Fall City, they have these contracts in place already. Are they going to receive the same amount of deputies in that area? Are their contracts going to shift? Are they going to have to pay less? Are they going to have to pay more to make up for the budget deficit in the King County?
That's going to be determined in the next biennium budget. That's when you're going to see these contracts perhaps shift. I don't know when these when these contracts with these cities expire, but that is something that will be explored as the budget process happens later in the year. Now, I will say, when you have a lack of officers, where did some of these smaller towns turn to? If you don't have the King County Sheriff's Department, is it more affordable to create your own police department? Probably not. So it just puts these smaller towns in a bind here, whether or not they just have enough policing. And will they turn to maybe alternative policing measures? That's something we'll have to keep an eye on here. But in the meantime, I think, you're going to see some of these small town residents just, biting their nails, making sure that, their safety is still there.
Yeah, I'd really like to hear from the residents and the elected officials in those areas on how they feel about these shifts, whether or not they were reached out to by the sheriff's department prior to this happening. One thing I really want to hammer in on it, you mentioned minimal levels. They're reducing staffing at these two precincts to minimal levels. What does that mean? Did they give you a number on how many deputies or other staff are going to be there at all?
King County Sheriff Department has not given me exact information on what these levels mean. But what this means is there has to be a certain number of deputies on patrol in these precincts. So that's something to have to look at here, because I don't have that information at my hand right now. But, how many officers do you need in some of these precincts? Because the North Precinct might not be as big as precincts near Seattle. So do you need 5 deputies all at a time throughout any given period of time? Or do you need more or less? And how much is that there? So that is a burning question right now is, well, what are we looking at here is the deputy per resident cap. What is the number there? What's the ratio? That's something to look at.
Yeah, and that's something we'll definitely continue to monitor moving forward. I'd like to take a look at those contracts. But thank you, Spencer, for covering this issue and joining us for another episode of Washington in Focus.